Hello, friends. It's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums. And I know you guys really enjoy these pick a pile readings. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to choose whatever deck you feel drawn to today, 1, 2, or 3, or what crystal you feel drawn to. And hopefully you get a reading that you really enjoy. So here's your choice. Pick whichever you feel drawn to. So, hey, pile number 1, you were either drawn to the rose quartz or this beautiful deck. So whenever I think of rose quartz, I think of this kind of soft, compassionate, nurturing sort of energy. So maybe that is something that you're wanting and needing at this time, and that maybe you need to kind of include in your routine, maybe taking some time out to reconnect to those things. Now, we also do have Venus-Neptune conjunction. And so I think maybe that's where that like softness, that gentleness, that desire to kind of like really love ourselves in various ways is maybe coming up to the surface. So I think rose quartz is a wonderful crystal to help support you in that kind of aspect. And especially if you've been feeling a little bit disconnected from yourself and from just kind of taking care of yourself and loving yourself in different ways. So we're going to put that there. Now, the deck that you chose is called the Dreamer's Tarot, right? Is that what it is? Yes, the Dreamer's Tarot, and this is by Marcella Kroll. It is a beautiful deck. I tried to use all kind of like indie decks today that maybe have been also mass printed, but this is an indie version, and I just love the colors here. So let's see what you guys have. All right, everything's been shuffled. So we're already getting a lot of these kind of emotional cards. I don't think that one's supposed to be reversed. And hopefully everything is looking good. It's kind of hard once I like get myself situated to make sure everything is good. All right, so I'm going to check and make sure everything's in frame. All right, we're good. Yeah, I think we need, not that one. Okay. All right, so very first card I'm going to talk about is going to be the Six of Cups. So the Six of Cups to me is very much this card of like nostalgia, childhood memories, maybe feeling a little bit lost in the past and being a little bit, again, it's like that sense of looking back with like those rose-colored glasses, not really paying attention to what was maybe actually going on at the time, and kind of looking back with a much more gentler view of things. And so to me, this is very much a card of like reflection. And again, that sense of like, oh, I wish things were the way that they once were. And maybe getting a little bit lost in some of those memories, especially if something feels like it was so much better than what it is at the current moment. The other thing, since we do have Mercury retrograde going on, I know for a lot of us, our thoughts tend to kind of go back to previous relationships, previous connections, previous friendships, things of that nature, wanting to kind of communicate and come back to that energy. So I think the Six of Cups is kind of telling you like, hey, everything may seem like, oh, this is wonderful, or I had such a great time with this person, or I really enjoyed the connection that I had there, or, oh, you know, things that happened previously were a little bit, you know, easier than they are right now. So maybe if I kind of like connect back to that energy, it'll be better. So I feel like this is a card that's kind of warning you and saying like, look through that emotional baggage, because maybe there's something there that, you know, is not going to really take you to where you need, or kind of bring up what it is that you need. So there's a little bit of just kind of glossing over the past. Now, next to that, we have the Mystic of Cups, which this is essentially the Queen of Cups in this deck. And so again, this is this kind of like nurturing, mothering, very much like being in tune with like your feelings and your intuition, and that kind of creative, fertile sort of energy, kind of taking time out to water yourself, connecting to the divine feminine. There's a little bit of that kind of energy that goes on with this. And I think it's interesting because we have the Six of Cups, which is very much like a childhood memories kind of energy and nostalgia. And then the Mystic of Cups, or the Queen of Cups, is kind of here to let us know, like, hey, maybe those things are lacking for us at this current moment. And so we need to take care of ourselves. And given that it's the rose quartz, we also have this kind of energy of like taking care of ourselves, mothering ourselves, nurturing ourselves, maybe connecting a little bit more to like the softer aspects within who we are. So I think that these two cards are kind of saying like, maybe it's time for us to take care of us. And maybe we've been going too hard at like what everybody else expects of us, that we're not taking that time out to kind of reconnect with our divine selves. And next to that, we have the Six of Wands. I do feel like this needs to be reversed. So to me, this is kind of saying like, maybe we're not getting the accolades or the recognition for our hard work or dedication. And interestingly enough, we have another six, right? So this is the second six out of these cards, kind of giving us a little bit of this energy, kind of telling us like, hey, maybe there's something that is being overlooked. Maybe someone is not giving us that recognition for our, hard work, our dedication, how we connect, how we communicate. Our relationships are maybe not giving us a little bit of that sense of feeling very successful in them in some ways, or maybe even having, again, that sense of like someone just being receptive and what's another word? Like just recognizing basically that, you've put in a lot of effort, that you are dedicated, that you do a lot of different things. I think with the Six of Wands reverse is that maybe you're wanting other people to recognize and see your greatness and your victory and your success and really lift you up into that phase, but maybe you're not getting that. And so maybe there's something that you're like starting to see like, hey, I came into this, relationship or this circumstance or this situation with the expectation that this is something that's going to be very good for me, and recognizing that even if I nurture something, other people may not always see that, and it can be a little bit of a struggle. Now, underneath that, we do have the Sun, which is definitely a card of warmth and joy and giving yourself an opportunity to shine. Since this is a major card, I can't talk. I think that it's kind of telling you like, what is making you happy? What is making you feel connected? And this, again, this is a big major card. It's kind of telling you like, what needs to shift? Where can you shine more? What can you kind of bring into your life that allows you to feel a little bit more connected, not just to yourself, but also to like what you believe in, what you desire, what, is connected for you. And I think with the Sun, it's very much this energy of, what is basically nurturing you in order for you to kind of grow into who you are trying to become. And so there may be some opportunities for you to really shine that maybe other people have not let you really step into fully. And now you're recognizing that you are prepared to kind of move into the next thing. So this may have a lot to do with like possibly a work situation, or maybe even just recognizing that you're ready to kind of change your physical manifestation of what's going on in your physical world. Because finally we have the Messenger of Pentacles, which is essentially the Knight of Pentacles. And to me, this is very much recognizing like you're ready to kind of charge ahead towards something that you feel is good for you. When I think of the Knights, not only are they here as like a message or to kind of bring you some sort of communication in some way, I think it's very much this energy of really recognizing what you're willing to go to battle for. And I think it's very much this energy of like, what are you physically going to do in order to kind of co-create the sort of existence that you've been wanting, especially when it comes to things that make you happy, things that bring you warmth, things that make you feel connected, that maybe allow you to find a sense of victory and, that momentum that maybe you haven't really been seeing in other ways. So I think with the Messenger of Pentacles, it's really trying to give you this energy of, okay, what are you going to go after? And what do you deserve? And what do you really desire and want, so that things can really connect the way that you need them to? Now, the other thing with the Messenger of Pentacles is I think it's very much telling you like, hey, this is a time to connect to like your body, your physical life, really paying attention to a lot of those different things. All right, so I hope that's making sense. Let's kind of pull some other cards and kind of see what we have here. So we have letting go. I think this goes very well with the Six of Cups and that Six of Wands reverse, where maybe this is telling you like, hey, there is some stuff that you need to release. It almost reminds me of that, I don't know if it's like a saying or something, where it's like we can't really get anything to come in if our fist is so tightly wound. And so we have to open up, we have to release, we have to kind of make that space for what we want and what we need. And I think with this card, it's really saying like, I think it's interesting because we have 19 here, we have 19 here. And so that is kind of saying like, hey, your new beginning is dependent on you removing and surrendering and letting go of something so that you can kind of open yourself up for the next phase. And I think with the letting go card, it's very much telling you like, hey, it is a part of your journey, even if it doesn't always feel that way. It's not easy to let stuff go. It is very challenging. It can feel very disheartening as well. And so I think that this is kind of letting you know, like, hey, you know, you need to let something go so that things can kind of shift, so things can kind of move. Now, here we have roots, which is all about ancestry, legacy, and tradition. And I think with this energy of this card, it's really telling you like maybe reestablish like who you are. Maybe your roots are currently changing and shifting. Maybe there's some stuff within your ancestral lineage that needs to be explored a little bit deeper. Maybe there is a call to look more into what feels good and natural and right for you in various ways. And I think some of us, we tend to forget that we're not meant to do all things, and we're not meant to be all things to all people all the time. And I think with the roots card, it's kind of given me this energy of like, hey, you don't always have to follow in the footsteps of everyone before you, but it's nice to have that recognition and that acknowledgement of thank you for, you know, opening these pathways for me, but I'm ready to do something else. I'm ready to kind of move forward from that and not just be stuck in the things that maybe other people have placed upon me or have expected of me. Now, let's get an inner child card. So you deserve to be seen. Let yourself be known. And I think that this goes very well with this Six of Wands reverse and the Sun. I think it's kind of telling you like, hey, why aren't you allowing yourself to shine? Maybe it's because of that tradition that you feel like it's uncomfortable for you to kind of step fully into things. And so this is why you need to let go of certain things so that you can truly shine. And I think with the you deserve to be seen, it's also a call for yourself to just be like, when's the last time you gave yourself permission to really show up as yourself fully, truly, and wholly? And if you haven't done that, is it because of other people's expectations? Is it because it's challenging to give yourself permission to say, all right, I want to do these things. I want to show up in this way. Even if I don't know what I'm doing, it's all good. Now, finally, I'm going to pull a card from the Queen of the Moon Oracle, since we do have this full moon coming, or sorry, this new moon coming up in Aries, which is going to be an eclipse, and it's going to be kind of a big deal. So here we have acceptance. And I think it goes very well with like letting go and just kind of accepting, just opening yourself up. I think it goes very well with the Sun and the Mystic of Cups energy, where it's kind of telling you like, okay, we have to surrender, we have to let go, we deserve to be seen, and I have to accept that. I think a lot of this energy of, you know, wanting to rise up and shine, wanting to break away from things that maybe are a little bit more traditional or acceptable according to what we perceive as necessary within our families, our culture, our upbringing, society at large. I think this is kind of telling you like it's time for you to kind of establish your acceptance in the sense of I'm going to be open to whatever the universe is trying to give me. Because a lot of us, whenever we're trying to manifest or whenever we're trying to kind of focus on what we want, what we need, we don't always allow ourselves to really receive things. And as someone that struggles with this all of the time and has terrible imposter syndrome, I understand and I totally get it. And it's so challenging to just be like, okay, I'm going to accept and I'm going to open myself up to those infinite possibilities that can happen if I just surrender and if I just open myself up to that energy. So let's see. All right, if you're looking for timing, I have this timing oracle. So I think some stuff is going to be changing for you in July, which, you know, the sun, to me, it's very much like this, like Leo energy. So maybe like during Leo season, there will be a big significant change. Maybe you have Leo in your chart that is significant, that needs to shift in some way. And so maybe in July, there's going to be a very big change where maybe that's where you really need to kind of take some time out to re-nurture yourself and move into this next space for yourself. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know what, actually forgot, sorry. Let's pull a couple charms. All right, first one, we got a seashell, and it was the other way. So to me, this is almost saying like take some time out to play. Maybe you need to fill your cup first as well, and maybe nurture yourself, or get to the beach, get to some salt water in some way. And if you can't get to the beach, make a salt bath for yourself, some Epsom salt bath in the bath if you can. If not, maybe a salt scrub, something like that to kind of cleanse, protect, get your energy back. Salt is very protective. Salt is very grounding in the sense of like it very much gets rid of whatever we feel is blocking us. All right, what else is going to jump out of my little bowl here? All right. So we have Imagine. Maybe it's time for creativity. And I think with these two cards, very much about that creative, maybe going within to kind of find that joy and that warmth within ourselves, and to physically do something with the things that we are creating. Now, I am kind of getting the sense of it's not just if you're like, well, I'm not a very creative person, or I'm not very artistic, or whatever the heck, kind of story that you're telling yourself. I think that this is also saying like maybe it's time to imagine and manifest the sort of life and expectation that you want moving forward, so that you're not staying stuck in that energy. Let's see. There's lots of big things in here. I'm like trying to just grab. All right. So next to that, we have Howlite, which to me is very much, I call it the crystal of the insomniac. So maybe you need to look at like your sleep patterns, maybe taking care of resting a little bit more when you can, taking some time out to reestablish a better routine for yourself at night, maybe even paying attention to your dreams, a dream journal, something along those lines of there's something that is disrupted right now with how you are connecting to your physical body. And so you need to take some time out to rest and pay attention to yourself. And finally, I have this buffalo bone bead, which is all about abundance, prosperity, hard work, dedication, structure, foundation, right? It's a bone. And so to me, this is almost saying like, what are you doing with your foundation? How are you taking what is already here in your life and maximizing it for yourself, creating something new with it? Even if you're like, oh, well, I was like this or this and that or whatever. To me, this is almost saying like, how can you reestablish this kind of energy for yourself? So thank you so much for joining me, Pile 1. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this. And I hope to see you next time. If not, maybe watch some of my other videos, see if there's anything that you enjoy. Have a good one. Take care. Welcome, pile number 2. If you chose this pile, you have chosen either the celestite crystal, or celestine is also what it's known as. Oh no, actually this is angelite, my bad. Which is very wonderful for helping you connect to that higher kind of vibration that angels tend to have. It's a wonderful way of like opening up the throat chakra, connecting more to your voice, your communication. Sorry for hitting the microphone. I always forget it's on my chest. And to me, it's very much this like balancing, grounding energy when it comes to communication, connection, and things like that. So if that's something that maybe you feel like you're struggling with, especially now that we have Mercury retrograde going on, maybe it's wonderful to kind of rethink and kind of ask that higher self to help you connect in a much more grounded and also elevated way. So the deck you chose is the Line Strider Tarot by Ciolo Thompson. Again, this is another little indie deck. version. That's all I tried to use today, is some indie decks that I don't typically always use, but they're beautiful. So let's see what we have for you. Okay. Yeah. No, I want this one reversed. Okay. That one's good. All right. That's so funny. We're getting a lot of like double cards here. All right. Is that what we want? Yeah. Okay. All right. So the tarot cards I have for you, very first card I have is going to be the Eight of Pentacles. I got this one reversed, even though I was kind of questioning a little bit for a second. I like to kind of see. But to me, the Eight of Pentacles really talks about perfectionism, working very hard, being very focused, having a lot of effort towards something. So to me, reverse, it's almost saying like maybe you've been struggling with your focus. Maybe it's been hard to kind of see what your efforts are really getting you. Maybe you're losing a little bit of like that motivation to have like that sense of hard work. Maybe it's a little bit challenging for you right now to focus on where is this taking you? What is this doing? How is this going to be received? How is this going to be kind of taken out into the world? Now, when I think of eights, I think of very much of this number of like infinity, right? But it's like upright. So it's almost saying like top to bottom, what have you been focusing on? What is it that you're kind of creating with that foundation that you established previously? And I think what this is almost saying, like maybe right now you're feeling a little bit directionless. Maybe you're feeling a little bit lost. Maybe your physical life has changed a lot. Maybe you're not seeing the fruits of your labor for being dedicated and loyal to something or to someone or to a situation. And so now you're feeling a little bit like, well, what was the point of me doing everything? And why should I continuously put forth a lot of effort into something that maybe is no longer going to give me the rewards or that I will, benefit from in the long term? And it's interesting because right next to that, we have the Fool. This set of cards actually got two major cards. So we have the Fool, which is almost saying like, maybe you're ready to set out into your own journey. Maybe there's going to be a lot of opportunity coming your way that is going to require a lot of trust and a leap of faith. When I think of the Fool, it's almost saying like, hey, give yourself an opportunity to not know exactly how things are going to go, or to not be aware of what this energy is trying to bring for you. This being a major card, it's almost saying like this is a big part of what needs to change. And I think this is a beautiful kind of message that really coincides with the energy of this upcoming eclipse on April 8th. And so I think it's very much this energy of like, what are you trying to do? What's going on? Like, what needs to shift? What needs to change? What is it that you need to do to just have this big acceptance and trust that everything is going to take you where it needs to, that everything will work out the way that it should, and that everything is really shifting the way that it needs to at this time. So when I think of the Fool, I think it's very much this energy of like, let's get out into the world. Let's stop hanging back. Let's stop being scared. And I think it's interesting because then right next to that, we have the Eight of Swords, which is very much this like, I'm helpless. I'm so hopeless. There's a stupid meme the other day that I saw and it just made me crack up. It's like, I feel so hamburger helpless. And I feel like that's very much this kind of energy of just kind of like, you're not seeing the opportunities here. You're so like caught up in like the overthinking and the details and this and that, and just too much in your head. You're over analyzing the situation. And as much as worrying is like that whole like cliche of like, worrying is like praying for something that you don't want. It's human nature, I think, and it's kind of something that we do because a lot of us have issues with surrendering and releasing control. I'm one of them, so I'm not like calling you out or anything like that. And so I know for a lot of us, it can be very challenging. And I know like this last week, I have felt very much like this Eight of Swords energy of just feeling very trapped, very stuck, very like, I don't know which way to go. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how, I can get myself out of like where I'm at. I don't know how to make the changes that I need to do because I've worked so hard to build my life this way. And now I'm expected to go around and do something else, right? And I think with the Eight of Swords, it's very much like this knot where it's almost like saying like you have tied yourself and bound yourself to something or a situation mentally, you're stuck in that. And instead of recognizing that you have the power to untangle yourself and remove yourself from that situation, even as challenging or as scary as it may be in your head, I think the Eight of Swords is kind of telling you like, hey, stop trying to have it be perfect. You don't have to have it be exactly the way that you thought it was going to be in order for it to be something that is good for you. And I think with the Eight of Swords, it's almost saying like, stop trying to bind yourself to how things used to be or how you think things should have been. Now, underneath that, we have the moon, which is very much this card of like confronting different shadow aspects within ourselves. The moon can bring a sense of like not really seeing things quite so clearly, while also asking you to realign yourself with your intuition in various ways. Now, when I think of the moon, we can think of like the phases, right? We can think of how often the moon is constantly shifting and changing. But unfortunately, when we are out and we can see the moon, it's nighttime. So again, we're not able to see quite so clearly. Even if there is a full moon, it's not as clear to us as it is whenever the sun is out. And I think with the moon here, it's almost saying like there's different things within yourself that need to be addressed. There's different aspects of yourself that maybe you haven't really allowed yourself to tap into, tune into, give yourself permission to pay attention to, or even just like reestablish how you're feeling about things. And I think with the moon, it's almost saying like there's a lot of stuff that's coming up right now. So maybe this upcoming moon cycle is going to bring a lot of like these wounds or things that need to be addressed and connected to in order for you to really see what is trying to happen here. Now, finally, we have the Page of Wands, which is almost saying like, hey, I'm going to block that. I don't know how like sensitive this is, and I always forget what decks have a little bit of nudity. So we're just going to go like this. So the Page of Wands here, I think it's very much this energy of, hey, we need to kind of get out there. And even if we don't know exactly what we're doing, or even if, you know, we feel inexperienced in some ways, no matter our age, there's always something that's going to make us feel inexperienced to some degree. I think the Page of Wands is kind of telling you like it's time to take that risk. And I think with the Fool, pages to me kind of give me that same energy. I call them little fools because they're not as drastic as the main Fool card, but it's almost giving you this opportunity to say like, okay, I'm ready to get out there. I'm ready to connect. I'm ready to do new things. I'm ready to explore, very much like childlike wonder about the things that you're trying to do. And wands to me kind of give me this like fiery, passionate energy of really like finding that momentum, that sense of travel, that sense of movement, that sense of like finding your passion, rewilding yourself is kind of like what's coming through right now. It's like, how can you rewild yourself instead of feeling so stuck in the monotony of that Eight of Pentacles, of feeling like I've had to force myself to do life this way and I'm tired of it. I want something new, but I'm scared because I've been doing life this way for so long. And so a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of unexpected things have been coming up that you've had to kind of confront within yourself, as far as like, you know, maybe I have been doing things this way because this is what I thought I should be doing, and this is what I thought would make other people comfortable. So I think with the Page of Wands, it's very much this energy of you're ready to kind of go out into the world. There's going to be an opportunity that may be presenting itself to you, and you need to not question it. You need to not doubt that, you know, even if you're like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how I'm going to do it. It's coming up for you because the universe is trying to either challenge you to do something else, and there's things within yourself that need to be confronted, as far as like your self-worth or your value, or how you know, want to kind of be in this life now that you're kind of shifting and moving away from things that you thought you should be doing. It's time to kind of really be out there and enjoy the different things within yourself. So let's get some oracle cards. All right. We have growth. And I think that this is very much this energy of, again, it's a one, right? It's like there's a newness. There's something here that's kind of saying like it's a baby, and we don't want to hurt that new growth. And it's tender. It needs nurturing. It needs a lot of reassurance. It needs a lot of like care and love right now. And so sometimes that's very scary. And I think with this Page of Wands, it's very much this energy of like you're growing, you're ready to move into this next thing, and you have to nurture that new growth and give it the right environment and not feel like you're doing something wrong or you're messing something else up. So next up we have surrender. So letting go, trust, expansion, very much the Fool, very much the Page of Wands, of very much giving this energy of moving into this next thing. When I think of the word surrender, I know it's like one of these things where it's like it makes people feel a little bit uncomfortable in some ways, because it's like asking you to kind of be like, all right, here you go, I give up. And it's not that. To me, surrender is more of receiving, being open, being very much like, here you go. I am laying all of this at your feet. You help me with this. I can no longer sustain this on my own. And it can feel very uncomfortable, I guess would be a nice way of putting it. It can feel very much like you have no sense of control over what's going on there. But I think that this is almost about that trust that whenever you are like, okay, that's enough. I can no longer do this on my own. I need help, that the universe will respond in kind. And that is that expansion. That's that growth of you kind of letting go of anything that has kind of made you feel stuck and has made you feel like you don't know what the hell you're doing, or you are confused about what comes next. Now, speak to yourself with kindness. Become aware of how you speak to yourself. Now, this is an inner child oracle. And so to me, this is almost saying like, what stories are you telling yourself, especially with this Eight of Swords? Have you been kicking your own ass about stuff? Have you been talking about, well, I don't know what I'm doing, or how do I know that this will be good enough? Or how do I know like blah, 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 whatever. We are constantly kind of being shitbags to ourselves, not to be too crude or whatever here, but we kind of are. And I think with this card, it's kind of telling you like, speak to yourself with kindness, become aware of how you're speaking to yourself. You need to start treating yourself like someone that you love, someone that's excited, someone that is, ready to kind of go out into the world. And this Moon card is kind of saying there's stuff inside of you that you need to confront, because you have been kicking your own ass unnecessarily, and it doesn't really make sense for what the universe is trying to provide. Now, for this Queen of the Moon oracle card we have here is will. And when I think of the word will, I think of like, what are you doing with your choices? What are you doing with yourself, in the sense of how are you showing up? Because I think of will as an opportunity for you to reconnect to this part of yourself that says, I get to choose, I get to pick, I get to show up however I need. And I think will is kind of saying like, all right, this is your opportunity to kind of move back into this energy and kind of allow yourself to shine, allow yourself to show up, allow yourself to really reconnect in ways that maybe you haven't in some time. And so maybe it's an opportunity for you to kind of look at what is coming and what needs to change for you. So if you're looking for timing, I do have this divine timing oracle over here. Let's see what we got when things, in the spring. So something is trying to shift for you in this spring. Now, whether that is you need to take care of the stuff in the spring, or maybe, this is an opportunity for you to really focus during this current time period, because that's what we're in. We're in the middle of spring right now, and spring is all the way until June 21st. So that is when the summer solstice begins, or midsummer. So you have time. Don't feel like, oh my God, I don't know, spring, is going to be over soon and blah, blah, blah. It's more of just giving yourself that space and that time to be like, okay, things are going to shift. Things are going to change. There's something significant here that is trying to kind of come together. And I think it's beautiful, because this is kind of like the grow season for a lot of people, where they're starting to kind of plant their seeds so that they can enjoy the fruits of their labor in the summer and during fall, right? Before the end of the harvest. So I think it's very much of looking at what you're planting. How are you speaking to yourself? What needs to grow? What sort of expansion needs to happen here? What things are you focusing on so that things can move forward for you? All right, let's pull a couple of these guys before I forget. I almost forgot with the last set. All right, so here we got, all right, cool. Funny. So we have first this divine feminine with Moldavite. So when I think of this, this is really saying like, hey, with this being upside down, I think that this is kind of saying like, you have forgotten yourself. You have either forgotten to nurture yourself, you have forgotten to deal with yourself. Maybe you've been trying to ignore some of the changes that are trying to happen for you at this time. Maybe there's something within you that you've been resistant to change or to deal with because it feels uncomfortable. And I think with this, it's almost saying like the more that you nurture yourself, the more that you take care of that, the easier it is to have that growth and that letting go. Now we also have the clock, which is saying you have enough time. You're not out of time. Everything is arriving right on time. Everything is happening for you the way that it should. Don't question yourself so much and don't feel like you're doing something wrong or that there is not enough time for you to kind of move into the next thing. Now, next to that, I have this little cloud, which to me, again, when I think of clouds, it's like air, right? It's movement. There's like a sense of like wind, of just like clouds kind of floating by. What are you seeing in there? I know that some people do like cloud scrying and things like that. So maybe it's asking you to look up a little bit more, reflect on what is going on. Maybe the clouds, if we're looking at like the energies from like maybe a Lenormand deck where it's almost saying like clouds are coming, they tend to bring a storm. They're here to kind of maybe remind you that you're not seeing things quite so clearly and you're not going to be able to until the things have been washed away with what comes. And so stop trying to plan every single little thing out as if there is room for, for you to have everything perfectly the way that you want. And it's almost saying like, you've already learned. Even as the clouds show up, don't overthink. Don't get so much in your head. And finally, we have the sacral chakra little charm here, which to me is kind of saying like it's time to create. It's time to reconnect to that energy within yourself of, really loving yourself, making life a little bit more luscious, a little bit more sensual, a little bit more. I feel like it's very much like we need to dance, we need to have fun, we need to have some movement, some momentum. We need to do things that like we enjoy and that we love. And when I think of like sensual energy, it's not just like, connecting with others in that manner, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to like go out and I'm going to treat myself, or I'm going to wear something that makes me feel really good, or I'm going to, just do an activity that I really thoroughly enjoy. And I think it's very much about like embodying that energy once again and kind of connecting a little bit more to that. So thank you so much for joining me, Pile 2. I hope that you enjoyed the reading and that it makes sense, that it brings you a little bit of clarity and peace of mind. If you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe, comment, do whatever YouTube is asking you to do. And if you're still curious about other stuff, go check out some of my other videos. I'm trying to post different content. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and have a good one. Thanks for joining me. Hello, Pile 3. So here, either you were drawn to the deck that I have here or the green aventurine that we have here, which to me, green aventurine is very much about abundance, prosperity, the physical body, connecting to the heart, doing things that we love. And so I do think it's very much this energy of trying to ground ourselves in some ways, finding a little bit more green, in our lives, whether it's to go touch some grass or something along those lines. I think it's very much this energy of trying to kind of get into much more heart-centered sort of energy. So if not, then we also have the Light Seers. I always want to say Light Seekers, but it's Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann Donnelly of Pixie Curio. And this is her like Kickstarter edition of the deck. You can buy this mass produced. I did try to use like original versions of decks that I have. So let's see what we have for you guys today. Doing a lot of pages today, so not reversed. I actually don't really use this deck quite often. It's beautiful, but I don't really. And finally, all right, no reverse today. We have 2 aces. All right, so very first card we have is going to be the Page of Swords. When I think of pages, I think of them as little fools. I think of them as being a little bit inexperienced, having like that childlike wonder, being a little bit naive. And so I think this is almost saying like maybe you're setting off on a new adventure. And maybe there's like some things that have changed in your mind. Maybe like mentally you have shifted some different things. Maybe you feel like this is the logical next choice for me, even if I'm not going to feel quite so grounded or experienced in this next thing. I think the Page of Swords is very much a card of like communication, connection, again, logic, the higher mind. And I think it's, like I said, communication. I think that's a big thing here. So maybe you're wanting to kind of shift how you communicate with others. Maybe you're like, I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to, act like I know better, or I'm not going to feel like I always have to have the right answers. Now, with the Page of Swords, I think it's very much this like getting very clear on like what you believe in a lot of ways, and taking that risk to kind of go out there and do something new. So I almost like want to say like this may be an opportunity to learn something new. This may be an opportunity to try something else that maybe you haven't previously. And so with this page, I feel like it's very much like, it's okay. It's okay. I have all these ideas. I'm going to do something with this. I have a lot of like things within me that I'm ready to kind of share with the world. Even if I'm not the most quote unquote experienced in this arena, I know that it's an opportunity for me to get out there and do something else. And again, kind of like take that risk, because not because you're like, oh, I'm stupid. It's more of just like this like positive expectancy of like what comes next. So I do feel like it's a very positive card, and it is kind of leading you into this next thing for you. Now moving on, we have the Ace of Pentacles, not reversed. Or actually, no, I think I want this. Yeah, I think I want this one reversed. Okay. So when I think of the aces, I think it's very much this energy of doors opening, opportunity knocking, really trying to call forth like the next thing. And pentacles are work, the body, physical manifestations of things, money. And so with this being reversed, I feel like maybe there's something that has closed itself off to you, or maybe you feel like you haven't really had that door open. And so maybe it's requiring you to kind of look within and see what is going on with you as far as what you believe you're capable of having in this next phase. So there may be a sense of there's something lacking. Maybe you feel like you're having to replant certain things, reroute what it is that you're trying to do for the future. And I think it's interesting with having that Page of Swords behind you. It's almost saying like, maybe you've like took a risk that was uncomfortable for you in some ways that you thought was going to be something good. And with this Ace of Pentacles being reversed, maybe it didn't really take root. Maybe it didn't really grow the way that you thought it was going to. And so there is a little bit of this sense of like questioning things. And I think it's interesting because then we move forward to Judgment, which is the only major card that I have here. And Judgment to me is very much this like energy that's a little bit like hard to pin down, because I look at it as like rebirth and transformation in a sense, but not like death. This is like after death, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, I've done the rebirth, I've let go, I'm like moving into this next thing. And Judgment is like rising up past that. It's a much more like spiritual lesson in a lot of ways. Now, this is a major card. So maybe there's like a big spiritual kind of evolving that is happening for you at this time that maybe is making you feel a little bit ungrounded, or maybe making you rethink all of the things that you believed or all of the things that you've known. And so with Judgment, I think it's almost coming in and kind of saying like, hey, I'm trying to elevate you to places that you wouldn't even have dreamed of at some point, because you didn't have the capacity to understand the possibilities that can kind of come here. And when I think of Judgment, it's very much that energy of like, okay, what are we doing? What needs to shift? What needs to transform? What is it that maybe we've been hanging on to that's holding us back spiritually and energetically, that's not allowing us to move forward? And maybe the things that are holding us back are the physical manifestations of the things that we thought that we wanted. And I think this is almost saying like, okay, so now we see those things didn't really even turn out the way that I needed, but I still feel myself growing past this and transforming what I believe, not just about myself, but about the possibilities for my life. Now, underneath that, we have the Six of Pentacles, which is very much this energy of like giving and receiving, as well as finding a better harmonious balance, choosing what we need in a lot of ways. When I think of the sixes in tarot, I think of it's very much this energy of like alignment. And when I think of the Six of Pentacles, it's almost saying like you've been trying to do too much by yourself. And the way that you will have success and not feel alone and not feel kind of like, oh, I have to do everything by myself is by finding a better balance within that giving and receiving. It's like priming that pump of prosperity for the future. And whether that is prosperity with your health, whether it's prosperity with your physical world, whether it's prosperity with like work, whether it's prosperity in a financial matter, I think it's very much kind of saying like you need to find a better balance with things. Like you've been trying to rely too much on yourself and you've been thinking in very limiting ways. And I think maybe with judgment kind of pushing this energy, it's almost saying like we need to shift how we perceive what we're capable of accomplishing, because we're not meant to live life alone. We are social creatures. We're here to kind of build community around us. And so I think it's almost reminding you like who's around you, who's supporting you, what, you know, as you give, who is giving you. And we see this kind of infinity symbol of like that kind of as we are receptive, we have to also be like willing to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to give you this and you're going to give me that. And it's almost like I'm getting like the sense of like bartering, of saying, okay, I can do this. I'm good at this and you can help me with this because you're good at that. And we can kind of work together and co-create a beautiful existence moving forward. Now, it's interesting because then to end it here with these tarot cards, we have the Ace of Wands, which the Ace of Wands to me is always like this, like, oh, bring it on world. Like it's very much like, let me like renew this vitality within myself to have this sense of like getting out there, starting something fresh, starting something new, opening up the door of possibility towards things that make me feel driven and connected, and that I feel like, yeah, this is like lighting my fire. This is stoking my passion in a lot of different ways. Now, the Ace of Wands to me is also this like, all right, what are you going to go after? You've shifted, you've transformed, you've stopped trying to block your blessings and the things that have been happening around you, and you're trying to find a better balance. But what comes next? What is it that you feel enlightened about? What is it that makes you feel driven? Now, I also think of this as like the physical kind of like connection of passion. And so maybe this is an opportunity to find a relationship that feels a little bit more connected for you, that feels a little bit more supportive, that allows you to kind of dream once again, that doesn't feel like you're having to constantly find the balance in order to make the relationship work. And so I think with the Ace of Wands, it's almost saying there's a lot of doors that are trying to open up for you. And it's up to you to kind of say, all right, I know that everything that I've been carrying and thinking about doesn't always mean that it has to be something that I need to co-create, because things are constantly shifting and transforming, and I have to shift and transform with them. So as much as we may have the most wonderful intentions to do something a certain way, it doesn't always mean that that's how shit is going to go. That's unfortunately how life is. We have zero control, right? But the only thing we do have control over is how we react and how we feel and how we think about the things that are happening for us and to us. So if that makes sense, I'm going to pick one of these cards over here. Authenticity. And I think that goes very well with the energy of the Ace of Wands. I think that by kind of bringing things back into balance, bringing things back into harmony in your life, it allows you to be more authentic. And authentic or authenticity to me is really just saying who is the best you, or who is the most you, I guess would be a better way of putting it. Like, when are you the most you? Without a fear of judgment, without a fear of how it will be received, without feeling like you have to know exactly what's going on with you in order for you to show up. I guess I needed this message too. I'm having like this very profound moment at all these readings. I always feel like they're picking on me too. And I think with authenticity, it's really an invitation of how can you show up as yourself, and how can you really give yourself permission to say, hey, this is what I really love. This is who I really am. This is who I have become. This is what I've learned. And not feel like you have to compartmentalize or shrink yourself down in order to be accepted or in order to be received well by others. And I think with Aries season right now, that is definitely the lesson. And now that we have Mercury retrograde, I think a lot of us are kind of like going back and rethinking how we've shown up, what we need, how we communicate, things of that nature. Now, here we have Rider, which I think goes very well with the Ace of Wands, which is movement, quick decisions, progress. And I think because this Judgment card is kind of sitting in the middle of these cards, it's almost saying like, hey, there's something that needs to shift and you need to kind of just move with it. Now, when I think of Rider, I also think of like the Lenormand Rider, which talks about something's coming in and maybe someone's coming to visit, maybe someone's coming into your life that is going to really require some movement, some adjustments, some changes, good and bad, because changes aren't always comfortable, right? Sometimes they feel like they are requiring a lot from us up front in order for us to see the benefits on the back end. And I think Rider is kind of giving you this energy of like, okay, like there's something that needs to shift. You need to make some decisions about different things because it's time for you to progress. It's time for you to stop holding back so much in ways that no longer make sense for who you are. Now, let's see what inner child. So seek guidance in this. It's a time for a different perspective. Interesting. When I think of this, I'm always seeing like the Hierophant kind of energy of like, maybe you feel like you have to kind of do everything on your own, like the Six of Pentacles is kind of saying. And maybe you're like, well, I know what I want and I know what I need and I know what I should be doing. And I think this is kind of saying like, hey, you don't have to do this stuff alone. You need to change how you perceive what you think that you should be doing. And it's time for you to change your perspective, because I almost feel like this is also a little bit like a hanged man kind of energy in tarot, where it's like there's a little bit of suspension. And so maybe you're like, I'm just trying to hurry up and get to the next thing because I want this movement. I want this quick decision. I want this progress. But you're not being authentic in some way. And so something is just not connecting. Maybe you're getting too caught up in the details. Maybe you're getting too focused on things that aren't really going to be significant moving forward. And I think with the seeking guidance in this is more of like trying to find some peace. Stop trying to do everything by yourself. You're not meant to do all of these things by yourself. You're meant to kind of find that community around you that are going to support you so that you can kind of move into this next phase. Now, since we do have the I keep saying full moon, the new moon on April 8th, which is going to be an eclipse. It's going to be a very big deal. Here we have the Queen of the Moon Oracle, and we have extremes. And so to me, this is really kind of reflecting this kind of energy of maybe you're swinging between two different aspects of yourself of like, oh, I'm trying to play it cool and calm and whatever. And then this other fiery kind of part of yourself. And I think with that authenticity, it's almost saying like, it doesn't need to be one or the other. You can find a happy medium, something that feels a little bit more comfortable for you instead of feeling like you're swinging back and forth. And I know like in the guidebook of this deck, it talks about like that hot moon energy. So a lot of sensuality, a lot of things like that. So maybe something significant will be happening this summer. Because I don't know when the quote unquote hot moon happens, but I do think it's sometime in the summer because it's like hot, right? So maybe there's something that is trying to shift for you during that time period. But if we're actually looking at time, and what we have here, I have this divine timing oracle. So I have try later. So I don't know if it's telling me I need to try later, but maybe it's saying stop trying to force stuff right now. The changes are going to come. And maybe this Ace of Pentacles of like maybe feeling like, oh, I planted the seed. I need it to be this way. And I need it to be this way. Is what is kind of holding you back in the sense of the expectation is not allowing you to see that there are some big things happening that are going to change. And so that is going to have to shift how you perceive things. And I think maybe that's where we have like this seek guidance in this, try later, there's extremes. There's maybe some stuff outside of your control that you need to just kind of surrender to and just be like, okay, I don't have to know how things are going to be, but let's see, let's try one more of these. So in the winter, which I think is going to be kind of perfect in the sense of maybe there's something that was happening this previous winter that is now allowing you to kind of move into this next phase. And that's why right now it's a little bit challenging for you to really see the clarity in this, because there's a lot of things that are trying to be healed and addressed right now in order for you to see the shifts and the changes that may be coming up for you this upcoming winter. All right, so let's grab a couple of these guys. It's a little noisy. I know. Okay. Oh my gosh. I think I pulled the same stuff for the other. Yeah, I did. I'm not feeling like this one. Okay, that one. Not this one either. Not this one either. Sorry. I'm like trying to do this in a little bowl, and it's like I feel like I can't really get what I want. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, so this is an armadillo bone, and to me this is very much about protection and like that exterior kind of protection, if that makes sense. I think it's very much saying like you've been in your shell, like you're closing yourself off, and as much as you're like, I'm protecting myself, I'm trying to do what I can, I think it's very much saying like maybe you think you're protecting yourself, but you're still like getting hurt in the process. Because I'm from Texas originally, and there's armadillos everywhere, and they would always be like splattered all over the road, because I'm like, they almost think that they're invincible because they have their little hard shell, but then they would cross the road and they're not very quick, so they would always get ran over. And so I almost feel like that's kind of the energy with this right now, where it's like, oh, I'm so protected, I'm so this, and like you're not recognizing that you're trying to do something by yourself at a time where maybe it's not the best. And so that may be why you need to kind of seek guidance outside of yourself and stop trying to do everything by yourself. You need to find a better balance. You need to change that mentality that, you know, oh, I got this, I know what I'm doing. And maybe you need to kind of find someone that will be like, hey, there's a car coming. This is not the best time to cross the road. Now we have this little star filled up with little stars in it. So I think that this is kind of saying like, hey, where's your faith? What do you believe in? What have you been wishing for? And is it still in alignment with what it is that you're trying to do now? Because sometimes you forget, we're like, oh, I prayed for this certain thing, or I was wishing for this, or I was trying to manifest this other thing for myself. And then something else happens. But we still have like those old manifestations kind of actively, not saying working against what we're trying to do, but maybe muddying up a little bit of that energy. I'm almost getting the sense of like whenever we're putting in an order for a restaurant, and if I'm like, oh, I want sauteed vegetables, any vegetables, whatever I want, a piece of toast and whatever. So I'm like not very specific with it. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'll be happy with that. And then 10 minutes later, before my order is up, I'm like, oh, wait, can I only have, you know, these specific things? So maybe like, I'm like, oh, I want a sauteed zucchini and sauteed broccoli and sauteed carrots. And then I want sourdough toast and, you know, with a little bit of butter or whatever. It's like understanding that we can't always like expect the universe to just like pivot for us because we've changed or we've gotten a little bit clearer on what we've wanted. And so it's almost saying like, yeah, there may be like some kind of confusion in the back while they're like, well, we don't have zucchini, or we don't have this, or we don't have that, or I was going to do this, or blah, blah, blah. It makes it a little bit challenging. And I think sometimes we get frustrated because we're like, well, I wanted this, and then I wanted this, and then I wanted this. And the universe is like, then it gives me the very first thing I wanted, even though that no longer fits into who I am and what I'm trying to do. And so I think with the star, it's almost saying, as much as you view like the sky with all of its infinite, you know, beauty and all of the stars in the sky, is that maybe there is a sense of looking at how many of our little wishes are within that big wish that we have. And maybe we're getting a little bit stuck on those little wishes, that we're kind of forgetting the big wish that we had. And I think maybe it goes very well with that, like, yeah, you're protecting yourself, but like maybe it's time to kind of look at the right time. Now we have, I'm assuming this is Saturn. These are charms that were given to me, and I just thought they were really cute. And I was like, I'm going to put them in my kit. I haven't really used them yet. So Saturn to me, we do have Saturn in Pisces. And so it almost feels a little bit restricting in the sense of like that boundlessness, because Pisces is not meant to be kind of stuck in one thing. They're everything. And so Saturn is very much this restrictive kind of planet of saying like, hey, you got to get your shit together. And I think with Saturn here, it's almost saying like, where have you been restricting yourself, or where have you been placing different things on yourself where like you're judging yourself and you're being hard on yourself and you're not letting yourself just like be supported through this. Yes, we do need to quote unquote grow up in some ways, but we don't always have to do life all by ourselves. And I think with Saturn, it's almost saying like, hey, it's okay if your dreams have changed, and it's okay if you don't really know how you're going to get to the next thing, or if, I think this was upside down, or if you feel a little bit directionless because we have this compass upside down. I think it's almost saying like, it's okay if you don't really know what direction you're headed into. It's fine. Because I think with Saturn, we have this sense of like, I need to know what I'm doing. I'm such and such age. I can tell you right now, I am in my 40s. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I still feel very lost, and I still feel very like confused about a lot of things in my life. And I have stopped putting so much pressure on myself to have it figured out. Now, I'm not going to say I always do it. I literally had a mental breakdown the other day. So I get it, girl. Let's just move forward. Let's do what we can. But with the compass upside down is maybe it's saying, listen to your internal compass. Listen to what internally feels good for you, what feels right for you, instead of trying to live your life in ways that are so restrictive and that don't allow you to kind of look at everything that's trying to happen for you. So I hope that makes sense. If you enjoyed it, like it, subscribe, comment, do whatever YouTube shit you're supposed to do. I have no idea. And if you're looking for other videos, I'm trying to post some other stuff about, learning tarot and things like that. So let me know what you guys like. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me, and take it easy.